All right. Well, welcome to Living Out Love. I have one of my besties, Suzanne Plattner, with me this week. This is our first episode where we are diving into a zodiac sign. I am so stoked about it. And if you are new to the podcast, you're new to Suzanne, there's a link to some of our other episodes in the show notes for you to check her out. But I wanted to dive into each zodiac sign because well, we're all going to benefit. And so I'll let Suzanne talk to you later on the podcast about if you do have Aries in your chart, if you don't have Aries in your chart, what's that like? But these archetypes, these signs are a part of our lives for all of us. And so I think we would all benefit from knowing more about them. So welcome to Aries season and welcome, Suzanne.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here, talk about Aries, get into Aries season. It's a really exciting time.
Yeah, okay, so why is it an exciting time? What do we love about Aries or
What
Aries
do we
season?
love about Aries? Oh gosh, there's so much to love about Aries. So just to back up just a smidge, Aries is a cardinal fire sign, okay? And the archetype is that of the warrior. And so what that really means is that they're really, really good at starting things. This is kind of the cardinal piece of it. Any cardinal sign is good at initiating activity, and Aries is great at initiating activity. We're going to talk about that. And the fire part means that they're real passionate. They've got like a real spark of energy. So we're gonna get into that too. And so the warrior, we all have a warrior within us. And so during Aries season is really a great time to tap into that warrior. Um, and what do we love about Aries? Aries, it's the fire of life, you guys. It is literally birth. It is literally
Mm.
birth. It none of us would be here without Aries. The season of spring would not be here without Aries. Um, so spring equinox and the beginning of Aries season, those happen at the same time. Aries season is what ushers us into the new astrological year. And it is what, if you think of it as a fire sign, and it's what brings life, literal life to everything. It's what is that little spark of fire underground that causes everything to come to life. All of the flowers, the vegetables that are going to be there, the trees blooming. It's just it is a fire that burns within each and every one of us and within this earth.
That's going to be tough to beat. I feel bad for all the other signs.
Yeah.
Um, wow, the original spark. Wow. So I feel like you kind of covered it. I was going to ask, what do we love about Aries in general, like as a sign in Aries season? So how do you think people might embody the Aries sign, that fire?
Yeah, so Aries really seeks to go. Like I said, they're a cardinal sign, which means that they want to initiate things. They want to go. They're action oriented. They're always on the move. It's just an incredibly instinctual sign. That like gut feeling that you get that's real quick, that's Aries. And if you follow that gut feeling instead of doing all the research and all of the things, that's you leaning into your Aries, okay? So really, it's the immediate split second decision that tells you yes or no, let's go. There's literally no thinking with Aries. If there were thinking in the involvement of creation, it just would never get there. There'd be too much thinking. Weighing all that's what Libra's for. Libra's here to give us the balance, weighing all the things. And of course we'll talk about it. Libra is Aries opposite sign, which is why they're so different, right? Um, so yeah, that's that to me, that's one of the best ways. I mean, there's a whole lot of other things you can, Aries is such a physical sign, working
Hmm.
out, things like that, just moving your body, getting into your body. Yeah, get that fighter within you.
Oh, that's really interesting. Would you say that Aries is an aggressive sign?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely a very aggressive sign. And of course, aggressive can have sort of a negative connotation and it doesn't have to be. We can use assertive, to say it in more of a positive term. But again, Aries doesn't think. They're just going to go forward and like do the thing. And Aries is kind of a selfish sign, so they're
Mm.
also just they're going to say their point of view. They're just going to do it and we'll see how it turns out.
Yeah. So I'm thinking about the literal metaphor of fire. Like I'm in my mind, I'm visualizing fire. And I'm like, when
Yeah.
fire's contained, it's life-giving. When fire's out of control, it's life-taking.
Yes.
Oh, I'm
Yes.
assuming that we have that with all of our signs as well. Would we have that with Aries?
Very much so. Aries is a very extreme sign. So your example is really a good one. When an Aries is really someone who has some strong Aries energy in their chart, when they're really embodying that well, they're going out and they're, first of all, they're probably going to be really a physical person. They're going to get out there and do something physically, like sprinting would be a really great thing for Aries to do because it's just so fast and it's just high adrenaline. They're going to get their blood pumping really fast. But even something, salsa dancing would be just another thing. Again, we think of that fire. So those are some physical movements. Maybe they're a litigator. And
Mm,
so they're in their job, they're just constantly, like battling, in the courtroom, maybe,
yeah.
you can have anything that gets Aries blood pumping, is going to be the good thing. Now, if they don't have a channel where they're able to get their blood pumping, that's when it's going to explode. It's not going to be good. And one of two things can really happen. They can either really, really tune into their anger and and it can get completely out of control. They can piss off a lot of people. They can create a lot of enemies. Or and I read recently, when your anger is so out of control, a lot of times it goes inwards and turns into depression. And so they can actually, their fire can just be completely burned out, and they end up really, really depressed because they're not using that natural fire that they have.
Wow, I hadn't thought about asking that question. And
Yeah.
like it's just so funny in preparing for this episode. I hadn't thought about the metaphor of fire at all. So putting the fire out is just
Yeah.
ooh.
Hmm.
Um well, so I feel like we've talked about this a little bit, but what are the shadows of Aries that Aries needs to be aware of and kind of navigate?
Yeah, Aries. I mean, every single sign has got its its shadow, and Aries is definitely no exception to that. I mentioned selfishness. Absolutely, can be a very, very selfish sign, and it's important that they keep that in check. Compulsiveness, not allowing others to support them, just being way too independent and not really even being able to receive support. Anger, lack of nuance. Again, Libra
Mhm.
helps with all of these things, by the way. Again, Libra being the opposite sign. Um, Being afraid is actually, kind of to my point that I just spoke about, because this courage is so important for Aries, so that if they're not able to be courageous and they end up being afraid, that is actually a shadow for them, And
Mm.
I mean, and I should clarify, fear is a natural thing. You can't have courage without fear, right? So the fear is going to be normal for an Aries, and that's going to be very, very healthy. It's does the courage go along with it? Are they being courageous? And if they're not, if they're letting fear overtake them, that is a shadow for them. And boredom, again, to my point, if they're bored, they're not going to be in a healthy place for themselves.
I want to talk to my I, you've said twice now that they can be like selfish or self-oriented.
Hmm.
In my experience of people, like there's a type of selfish where okay, I know I can see that you're doing this and you're doing that, but I got my own needs and so I'm just going to take care of myself. But then there's also this type of selfish where they're just not even aware of what's happening outside of them.
Yeah.
With Aries, does it go? I'm thinking about like literally that it starts the season and that like their creation. And I'm thinking if I'm first and I created, like, if there was no life before me, then yeah, I would have no awareness of what's that there are other people or whatever. Like I could see Aries just like not even being aware that other people are real and exist and have priorities.
Absolutely. Gosh, that's such a beautiful point. Yeah, because they are the first sign of the season, you're absolutely right. There really is no kind of innate awareness in them. And it's something I think that they have to cultivate throughout their lifetime. And hopefully they have people around them who help them to kind of get to understand the healthy version of being selfish, because there really is. Because yeah, if they weren't selfish, none of us would be here,
Yeah.
like the act of human creation, like everything, that spark of life that happens, like it's just selfishness is so important, and it's important that each human being learns how to tap into selfishness to some degree, but it can get out of hand. Again, it's similar to that fire example where it can be such a actually a healthy, wonderful thing, and it can get out of hand really, really easily. And for an Aries, I think it's really important to learn how to do that in a way that's good.
Yeah, yeah. That's one of the things I love about astrology is the elements.
Hmm.
The, air, fire, water, earth. We need all of them.
We do.
And we also don't need to be flooded by any of them,
Yes,
you know.
yes, exactly.
Yeah. So this is a spiritual podcast. And so I like to take things in that direction. And so I'm curious, what do you think, whether spiritually speaking or not, what do you think that Aries is really here to contribute to the world? What are they here to teach us?
Yeah. Yeah, I think life, how to live life. I don't just mean living in your life, going about your day, doing things like
Mm,
live life. I think that's true of all of the fire signs, but Aries is the most guttural version of that. It's the purest version of that, I would say, because they are the initiator. I would say fire, passion. Aries is here to teach us
passion.
passion, um, instinct, movement, just how to move our bodies, how to fight a battle, whether that's in the boxing match or as an actual warrior out on the battlefield, or like I said, in a courtroom, maybe. it's
Yeah.
it's all of it's all of that. Yeah, they're here. Fight, I think, is actually a really great word for Aries. They are here to fight. um yeah.
So I want to point to two things you said. One thing that you said was instincts,
Hmm.
which, as a psychic, I think in my world we would call that intuition.
Sure.
And so I think the strength of Aries having that guttural physical instinct is something that, I mean, even I don't have a ton of Aries in my chart. And so for me, it's like practicing that connects me to my intuition. Um, and you're nodding your head. So that's what I want to make sure that you were in agreement with that. And
Absolutely.
then, oh gosh, now I've forgotten the second thing. Oh, fighting. So I just want you to talk to me about fighting because I associate fighting with destruction. Like, I don't necessarily associate fighting with like restoration or justice. I can kind of see it as just wasteful.
Mm-hmm.
And I know
Sure.
it's not that, but help me understand why fighting is important in a spiritual paradigm.
Yeah, I think because if there's no fight within you, you're just going to be run over.
Mm,
You're going to let people, I mean, we can talk about this in a whole plethora of ways, but the human spirit has to have a fight in them, or else we're never going to be able to be our authentic selves. We're never going to make decisions that are best for us. We're going to let everybody else guide us along the way instead of standing up for what's right. And sometimes it does take a fight. Sometimes somebody says you should do X, and that's not what you should do, and you do have to fight, whether that means with your words, whether that means with your actions. If you look at it on a global scale, of course, I mean, it gets ugly. Nobody likes war. I certainly do not like war. And yet war is something that has been a part of human history since I'm sure the earliest humans, even small tribes coming together. That as much as we want to say that's, I'm a spiritual being, and I'm peaceful, and I'm this and I'm that, and I'm all about love, and da, 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 da. The fact of the matter is that if we denied the fight within the human spirit, there'd be a massive part of us missing. It's like when you have a toddler and they're and they just want to be kind of crazy and maybe throw pillows around and throw cars and do whatever toddlers do, right? And you go, no, 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 Johnny, don't, you can't do that. And if Johnny's got a lot of Aries energy, you've just tamped him down in a way that is honestly harmful. The
Mm.
more that you do that, Johnny's got to throw the car. Johnny's got to throw the pillows. He's got to get his Aries out in some way. It is, and not every person is like this. Some are just the most gentle of souls, but it is absolutely part of the human spirit that many of us, we've got a fight in us, and if we're not embodying that fight, um, we're not living in our authenticity.
So it's like dawning on me from an emotional intelligence point of view,
Mm-hmm.
like anger from a
Mm-hmm.
spiritual perspective. Anger is the emotion that alerts us to that we need to change something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's when you're talking about throwing cars, I'm on the like no 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 side of things.
Right.
Um, but anger actually does have a very deep spiritual purpose.
It does.
And I have an episode on that in season 2 of the
Oh.
podcast. Um, so that helps me contextualize it. Because when, I don't know, with the word fighting, I go to war, you know,
Sure.
but you're right. That's not the only type of fighting, and anger is important.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's, like it's so important for Johnny to learn how to channel that anger in a healthy kind of way. Yeah, maybe he shouldn't be throwing cars, but what can he do? And so that's something I think a lot of parents struggle with. I have an Aries child, and he has to get his anger out some way. And so it's a struggle to help him to um learn to do that in a constructive way.
yeah, yeah. Um, well, that's the shadow. Meh. um, what happens if so? I think we talked a little bit about like if we didn't have Aries in our lives, like we wouldn't exist, we wouldn't be here. What
Hmm.
happens on a personal level if we don't have Aries in our chart, or if we don't have a planet in the sign of Aries?
Yeah, yeah. If you don't have Aries in your chart, you might kind of lack the vigor to start. You might not be passionate about things. You might just wonder, like, why I see all my friends, they're just out there being so passionate about things, and I'm just not. You might be not be able to tap into your anger, you know? And so you might be wondering kind of those kinds of things might be what you're feeling. Now, if you have other fire signs in your chart, that may supplement it. And kind of as a really important piece of this, it's very not it's very normal to not have a planet in every single sign. There's only 10 what we call in astrology basic planets, and there's 12 signs. So
Right.
if we're just using the 10 of them, there's no way that you can actually have that. So sometimes people look at their charts and they go, oh my gosh, I'm missing this thing, da, 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 and they're so worried about it. Well, no, everybody's got that. We're all missing different things. And so if this is a problem for you, if you're noticing like, yeah, I am lacking these things, how do I tap into it, you know um there's a few ways that you can do that. First of all, when you look at your natal chart, and you might need an astrologer's help with this because it can get complicated, but if you have a copy of your natal chart, you can look at the house that Aries rules, and you can kind of see, all right, so that's the area of my life where I embody my Aries best. Okay. And you can Google things and all of that. That's one area where you can kind of look to that. Another is, well, we all have the planet Mars in our chart. Every single
Mm.
human has the planet Mars in our chart. Mars energy and Aries energy, that's kind of the same thing. The question will be, well, what sign is Mars in your chart? Now, if your Mars is in Pisces, for instance, Pisces is a very peaceful sign. You're going to go, okay, well, how do I tap into that? And there are ways that you can go, okay, well, your Pisces energy wants to kind of take on some of that assertiveness. How would that do that? And For Pisces, Pisces is, yeah, more spiritual, loving, compassionate sign. So it's probably not going to be so much about the fight, but you might, like I mentioned, salsa dancing, Pisces, I think Pisces loves to dance, and so salsa dancing, something that just gets your heart rate up, um, would be a way to kind of tap into that. So I think it's, if you're with an astrologer actually looking at your chart, they'll be able to tell you best what avenues you might have towards that Aries energy, towards that fire energy. Um, because it's, everybody's chart is so unique that it can be kind of hard to break
Sure.
that down. But there, you do have an avenue to Aries. It's just, how do you get there? And I think probably the best way is like to go to an astrologer, get a reading, and they can kind of help you figure that out. It's, yeah, it can be complicated, but it is not impossible. And I think the best thing to remember, even if you, is just to get your heart pumping, and getting your
Okay.
heart pumping in some areas of your life, maybe is going to help you to express your anger. Maybe is going to help you to create that passion in you.
Yeah, that's when you all the words when you were talking earlier about Mars and Aries being similar, and then one of the first things you said about Mars is like dancing, if it was in Pisces. So I'm taking that to mean Mars is a very physical sign.
Yes,
And so would
absolutely.
we naturally say that Aries perhaps is a more physical zodiac sign than the other signs?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely, yeah, I probably would. Yeah, because it's just, it's it's all yeah, it's all about your body, that movement, the adrenaline that goes through you. Aries also rules the adrenals within our body. It's, yeah, it's all about movement, that heart pumping. Hmm.
Okay. And I mean, that makes sense because back to the emotional intelligence lens, like passion and anger are both very felt
Hmm.
emotions versus something like despair is almost like a out of body emotion. We have a hard
Yeah,
time feeling it. We're
yeah,
disconnected from it. So that makes sense. Um, what do Aries what do Aries love about life?
yeah. I think they love. I kind of already said this, but I'm going to repeat it because I think
Yeah.
it's worth saying twice. They love living, and
Mm.
like not sitting on the couch watching TV, like living, living
Oh,
to the fullest expression of life. They love to just get out there and just do, and feel that make something that make that fire just
yeah.
really burn, so bright. Um, yeah, they love to compete. Any
Oh,
kind of competitive sport or any kind of competitive anything. They're going to be out there. They're going to be the fiercest competitor out there, just, yeah, moving their bodies in any way. They love to be courageous. I talked about the importance of them being courageous. They love to be courageous. A challenge. Give me a
ooh.
challenge. I'm going to do it.
Do they need something to fight for?
Yeah, I think they
Okay.
do. I think they
Okay.
really do. Yeah, that can be really, if they don't have something to fight for, they're gonna find it.
Gotcha.
So it's gonna,
Okay.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's gonna turn up as, fights within their marriage or something like that.
Right. Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah. Okay. I'm in my mind recontextualizing when we, sometimes I should say sometimes when I hear the word fight, I'm thinking against, not fighting for.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so both are possible.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
So what is it that you think? So Aries is passionate, they're competitive, they're like, they're the first, they're the spark. What is it you think they're here to learn?
What is it that they're here to learn? They're
And
here
you
to
know
learn
what?
to be,
Sorry, I'm going to interrupt and just
yeah,
like remind people that nobody is 100% Aries. And so I'm not
yes.
saying this is the only thing you're here to do, but just from like an archetypal thing.
Yeah, and
So,
I think that's a really important point because you're absolutely right. All of our charts are actually so complex, and
right,
we are just speaking about if someone had pure Aries energy, which that's not a thing. So,
right. Yeah.
yeah.
but it is just, yeah. So I'm just, I feel like that's a question that we don't often ask.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm curious for your take on, yeah, what is Aries here to learn? And what I mean by here to learn is like in this lifetime, from the paradigm that we choose to come to Earth and grow and expand. What's the Aries
Yes.
route for that?
Yeah, they're here to learn to be fierce. I mean, so
Mm,
I'll use some of the same words I've already used, but to really tap into that fierceness, they are here to show the world how to fight and stand up and use our bodies. Um, I think that they're here to just you've got to have some sort of energy here that's so instinctual. And so I think they're here to, yeah, to learn to just follow all of those things. Um, they're here to be courageous and put up a fight, here to challenge themselves, stand up for themselves and claim what is rightfully theirs. You can, again, like we can go back to the selfishness thing. You can call it selfishness, but you'd be really short-sighted if you did. Um,
mm.
because they are selfish and they have to be selfish. You know, um, it's important to, sometimes for people to put their own needs ahead. So yeah.
So I'm embarrassed to admit this, but I'm Libra rising, which is the opposite of Aries.
Yeah.
When I asked like what are they here to learn,
Uh-huh.
I thought you were gonna say kind of the opposite of what you said, like
Uh-huh.
that they're here to learn peace or whatever. But your
No.
answer is so much more correct. Like they're here to learn how to be the high road best version of Aries. Of course they
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
Um, and it's just hilarious that because I'm so ingrained in Libra, of course,
Mhm.
oh, they're here to learn to be like Libra. No, they're not,
No,
Amy.
no. No, yeah.
Yeah.
But let's take a look at that, because absolutely when you want to look at the high road of one sign, you absolutely do shoot to the opposite sign of Libra. And so that you're not wrong, you know. But they're not learn here to learn how to be a peaceful individual. Like
Hmm.
they are here to learn to be, every human is here to learn to be authentic and to be who they are to their most fullest. And again, when we put out some of Aries fire and we tamp them down, they can't, they're literally become depressed,
Hmm.
and so yeah, I think, yeah.
What to fight for, where to fight.
Hmm.
Hmm. The passion and the instinct. I love it. I mean,
Yeah.
this is one of the reasons why I wanted to record these episodes because for me, fire signs in my chart are quite challenging mostly. And so I don't have a lovely relationship with Aries. So asking all these questions, I'm like, oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
So I'm curious for me, I feel like there are certain things that when I remember, I am my best self.
Hmm.
So I've shared on the podcast like I can be very wrapped up in the opinion of others. And so for me there's this like A Course in Miracles has in my defenselessness my safety lies, and I'll remind myself the spiritual truth that like no matter what anybody says or thinks about me, my value doesn't change, my lovability doesn't change. And it's
Right.
like when I know that in my bones, like not mentally, but when I know that in my bones, that's when I show up as my best self.
Hmm.
So what does the archetype of Aries, what do they need to know that they've probably forgotten? Like, what is it that they're here to embody that's going to allow them to be their best selves? And this is a really hard question. So I'm kind of sorry I'm asking you, but if you have an answer, it'll be amazing.
Yeah. What do they need to know to embody themselves? They've got to know that they are worth the fight, that
Mm,
they are, yeah, that they're, you know I think that, we're talking about Aries here in such a positive light, and but if we look at anger from a very negative place, and we don't want people to be angry, little Johnny throwing the cars, things like
right.
that. Society says that's not okay. Somebody gets angry, you're bad, is often the the retort. And I think that collectively we really need to be doing a better job of supporting people in their anger, and allowing it to be expressed. I mean, because, and I know you know this from an emotional, background, it's all human beings, if we feel intense about something, we need to get our anger out, and we are not able to, it's going to become
Harmful.
internal. You are going to be depressed. You're going to blow up to the point where your anger is going to do something actually quite bad, and so I think we need to recognize that, and here I'm saying I feel like I'm not answering the exact question here, but I think that for an Aries, I think it's important that they understand. I think they might feel shame sometimes about their
Mm,
anger, and so that this is kind of the perspective I'm coming from. Like, your anger is a part of you, and it's important, again, to learn how to channel that in
yeah.
a healthy way. But it's nobody is bad for feeling mad,
Yeah.
right? And yeah, I think that our society can do a much better job of supporting that, and figuring out how to channel it, and not just labeling people. Um, you know, does
Yeah.
that
So
answer the
they,
question?
I think so, but we're going to keep talking about it.
Sure.
So they need to know that anger is sacred. And then I had this idea while you were talking that they're instinctual
Hmm.
and they naturally like move by their instincts. And I was kind of thinking from a global perspective, I wonder, because anger is natural to them and because they're instinctual, I kind of wonder they might be the first to, well, they are the first, but they might be the first to notice if something's gone awry.
Mm-hmm.
Like they might be the whistleblower
Yeah.
in a positive sense of the word.
Yeah. I think absolutely, again, going back to the fact that they're a cardinal sign, they are the initiator. They are they, you know, yeah, they're not afraid to put themselves out there. They're gonna maybe have, you're right, a visceral reaction to something, a gut instinct that tells them something smells fishy, and I'm gonna take action. They're not afraid to take action.
Mm.
So yeah, and it's so important to have those people in society, you know? Yeah, who
Yeah.
are not afraid.
My suspicion that one of the things they might be here to learn is that it's possible to be mindful without putting out fire. You think that's true? Or is it not
Let
true?
me repeat that. Let me repeat that. It's possible to be mindful without putting out fire. Yeah, that's absolutely a true statement. Um, and they yeah, they do need to learn to manage, you know, that. But I think that, it's all about embodying that
Mm.
that fire in the right way. So yes, you can be mindful. You can be, all of these lovely qualities, what society thinks is quote unquote lovely qualities, and also have your fire going, again, because you're utilizing it somewhere. If you're, again, a sprinter,
Right.
or you're, in the courtroom, or, the whole, maybe you're a police officer, you're utilizing it there, and in your personal life, you're 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 calm, you're peaceful. And I think that when we ask the question of what is someone here to learn, I think it's such a nuanced question, and it's
Yes.
so difficult because it it would really depend on the person's natal chart so much, which all of this would. Literally every question would actually depend on the person's natal chart.
Right.
So what I'm saying is moot in some ways. But I think that when we're asking the question about what is someone here, it could go in a million directions,
Sure.
because everybody's curriculum here on earth is so vastly different, and so I just don't think it's completely true for some Aries. I think
Sure.
for I think it's too nuanced. Yeah.
How very Gemini of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think because so I the one place where I do have Aries is in my Mercury, which is communication. And so something that I have to know is to your point about how nuanced it is for me in Aries, I have to know that it's okay for me to take a break before I communicate. And it's
Hmm.
okay for me because I can yell. Like I can just yell. It feels really good for me to yell. It just does. Um, but it's like if I don't either go for a walk or really get clear on why I'm angry, I can talk to somebody and they can get burned. You know, it's like the fire can be really destructive if I
Hmm.
but you know, there's that part of us where like anger is really powerful. And so if we're not communicating while we're angry, it's tempting to look at that and as if we're less powerful, you know? Um, so for me, the lesson would be to like if back to the fire metaphor, it's like communicate while you have fire. Don't put the fire out, but make sure your fire is not taking over the whole house and it's like in the fireplace where it belongs. You know, it's
Yeah.
contained. And for me, that containment is often like, okay, I need to take some deep breaths. I need to be very clear about behavior versus name calling. You know what I mean? Like there's just like the containing of the fire. Um, so you're right. It's absolutely nuanced. But when you were talking about when I was like, what is Aries here to learn? And everything that you said there was so beautiful. I wish I could remember the exact words that you used. How to be fierce. That was what I loved. How to be fierce.
Hmm.
Um, because that's a different you like I can tell how like ferocity comes from fire, but that's a different connotation than just having fire. It's like how to be fierce. And so as somebody that struggles with Aries and wants to get better at Aries, I'm trying to think like, what is it that I need to know that would in my bones help me to be fierce?
I think that you're allowed to. I because I
Mm,
again I think our society in some ways really rewards that behavior and in all other ways really I just think our society is very confused
mm,
about that type of energy. Um because it yeah, the fire can overtake everything. And I think that it's actually so healthy when it's done in a way that's not out of control. And I also think that sometimes it's got to be a little bit out of control. You
mm.
know, like sometimes you just got to get it out. You
Yeah,
know, and of course, okay, where do we draw the line here? Obviously, um, it's just it's such a it really is a complicated topic because we in society, in order for society to work, we all have to be in line doing the things, following the
gotcha.
rules. Aries is not the best rule follower, because they are that selfish. They are, like, and so I think but if you just imagine a world where, like, every human knew that if something wasn't right, they would have no fear and they would just step right up to the plate and say, this isn't right. And they would use all of that fire within them to really just speak their truth and say what they got to say, and if they need to fight, imagine, I mean, on one hand, imagine that world. That sounds terrifying. And
No,
that's
you
where it
gave
can
me
get out
the
of control.
chills. I You gave me the chills at how different this world would be.
Right. Yeah, if we could all do that but in a healthy way.
Yeah.
And that's the complicated part, is that Yeah. And so yeah, for Aries, when you're coming back to the question of what they're here to learn, how to how to express that fire in its healthiest form.
Mm,
I mean, it's how to stand up for what's right for yourself, for whatever, in a way where you're going to be heard,
yeah.
and you're going to have an impact. Um, yeah, yeah,
So I've heard that Aries are the leaders because they're first.
hmm
But because we've talked about like they're sort of self-oriented, I kind of have this vision of they come first and they're fire and we like them because they're passionate and so we follow, but they're not necessarily turning around to make sure we're doing it right.
No, they're not.
Okay.
No, they're not.
So they have leadership potential, let's say.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right.
Absolutely. A lot of leadership potential there. Um, yeah, but you'd have to look at the whole chart of somebody to really see,
Well, that's true. Yes. Yes.
yeah, because no, they're yeah, yeah,
Okay. All right. So I want to talk about Aries season, like the coming season, but before we get to that real quick, I'm
yeah.
curious about Aries in relationship. And again, none of us are 100% Aries. We're just kind of talking archetype. But how, especially because we kind of think of them, even in a positive way, as being self oriented, how do Aries love others?
Yeah, passionately.
Yes.
Passionately. I mean, the bedroom's going to be spicy, right? Like that's one example. We talked about, humans being born, and that is definitely one example. They give their absolute all, though. I
Mm,
think they're always just going to be there. They're really going to be there. They're going to fight and then make up with everything they have. Again, another example of just giving their all to everything. They're going to be protective, you know.
that's beautiful.
Yeah, they'll initiate action within the relationship. And here's, if you have an Aries and a Libra together in a relationship, where do you want to go for dinner? And the Libra is going, I don't know, wherever. And the Aries is, okay, let's go here,
Yeah.
and that sometimes is the best dynamic in a relationship where, um Um, but because Aries is inherently selfish, it's really important that I said this already, but I'm going to reiterate it, that they find their fight outside of the relationship,
Mm.
because or else, yeah, it's gonna really come in there. And so we hope that they keep the passion in that relationship, and they helps to make sure that the relationship is always really lit up. And hopefully they're doing a great job of lighting up their partner as
Mm.
well, you know.
Oh, that's beautiful. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, yeah,
So if we're in relationship with Aries, and it- when we say relationship, we usually think romantic relationships, but we could extend this outside of
sure.
that.
Yeah.
What do Aries need from us in order
Yeah,
to receive love?
yeah, they need us to keep up with them because they're gonna be go 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 all of the time. I think they need us to respect their anger and their fight,
Mm,
and that is just a part of them. We've got to support their passions, um, their ability to feel lit up. We've got to understand that they are risk takers, and again, support the fact that they're gonna take some risks, and not to say you have to be happy with the risks that they take all of the time, but I just understand that is who they are. um and I think the healthiest kind of partner for them will do all of those things but calm them as well. Again, the Libra would be such a great partner for them because the Libra will bring that calming energy to them. So okay, let's have the sparks and the fire and the movement and the all of this somewhere, and then the Libra brings the part that okay, let's also have some peace, and if they can manage that, then I think that's very supportive of a partner with an Aries, is to show them the route to peace and how to get there.
mm.
Yeah.
I had written in our, outline, I had written what brings Aries towards feelings of inner peace and solace.
Hmm.
And I was thinking as we were talking, I was thinking that's a Libra question. Like Aries might not be searching peace and solace. Like they
Uh-huh.
might be searching a different feeling.
Yeah, well, that's true. And also, everybody needs those feelings of peace and solace. At some point, we all have to get there. Just as much as we all need to embody that fight, we all also need to embody, the peace and solace within us. It's, just part of being human. And I think that for an Aries, it's very difficult to get there,
Mm,
and I think one of the avenues to get there is being able, like I already kind of said it, but being able to have their fight. I
yeah.
think they can get there if they've had their fight. Um, as long as they're expressing that and they've got it out there somewhere, they're getting sweaty. They're doing, then they're able to calm down and yeah, and be relaxed. Because if an Aries were just on fire all the time, well, that's not good.
Right.
Yeah.
I like when you said like get their fight. I had this image again, if Aries was an archetype, I had this image of
Hmm.
like Aries laying its head down on the pillow for the day and just literally what I heard in my head was like I fought the good fight, and like and then I'm out sleeping.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's the piece. I fought the good fight. Um
Absolutely. I can see that. And it's like, imagine somebody like, who's just had a strenuous workout and they just collapse. And
yeah.
that's Aries energy. I think so wonderfully. All right, now let's collapse. That's how they're gonna kind of get there
That
because they've
was a
given it their
really
all.
helpful example for me.
Hmm.
Because the fighting, like I want to get there, I'm bought into it, but I don't actually get it in my bones, But the when you exercise and then you have that, like, yeah, I did it. Okay, that's something I can get.
Hmm. Hmm.
Oh man. Okay. Anything else you want to say about Aries and the archetype? I mean, I feel like I know we've repeated ourselves several times, but anything else before we move on to like what's up ahead this season?
Oh gosh, I don't know. Yeah, I feel like we've done a pretty good job. So yeah, yeah.
Awesome. Well, this episode is airing right after Larry's Aries season starts.
Uh-huh.
I think it's like March 23rd. I think it's when this is going to go live.
Okay.
So, looking at the transits that are during Aries season, anything collectively that we should all be aware of that's happening?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I wrote down a few things. So this will have already taken place, but, just to kind of let people know, the sun will enter Aries on March 19th, 8:16 p.m. exactly. 8:06 p.m. I'm sorry, exactly. It's going to go through April 19th at 7 a.m. Um, and so yeah, and like I said, season of Aries is always the exact moment of the spring equinox. The signs are what usher in all of the seasons. Okay, so that's 319, 322. So also the day before this podcast airs, Mars is going to enter Pisces.
Oh,
And that's funny that we talked
that's
about
what,
that
yeah.
Mars and Pisces, which is such a, so maybe this Aries season might have a little bit of a, yeah, a tamped down feel to it. We've
Mm.
got some Pisces energy there, with our action, which is, yeah, that's going to be an interesting kind of flavor.
Let's all go
Um,
salsa dancing.
yes. Full moon lunar eclipse in Libra on 325 at 12:01 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. So, yeah. So we're getting back into the swings of eclipse season here, guys.
Can you can you tell people that don't understand eclipse like mania? Why do
Yeah.
people care so much about eclipses?
I think there's a whole plethora of reasons. I think
Yeah.
probably the two, I mean, even before I was into astrology, I loved eclipses because they're just fun to watch. I mean, and they're if you can physically see them, of course, you can't always. I think there's just this amazing phenomenon, even if we again take ourselves completely out of astrology, where the and it's just people back in ancient times literally thought these were messages from the gods, and
Mm.
so it's I think there is some of that in there, you know, and there's so much power in it from a spiritual perspective. I mean, the light goes away. Our light, so we have two luminaries, the sun and the moon. They go away. You know, sometimes whether it's a total eclipse or a partial eclipse, it varies, right? What does that mean? And when our light is all of a sudden dimmed, what are
Mm.
we supposed to do? We are in the shadows. Like, what does that mean? And it's different depending on the sign and all, you know, whole other kinds of things. But yeah,
You gave me another chills moment.
yeah, those luminaries are so important. So when they make a big change like that, yeah, it's a big deal. Yeah,
Oh, it is a big
yeah.
deal because I don't know. I anything where people get super excited, I'm naturally like, I don't know.
There are some where it's a bigger deal than others. So that lunar eclipse in Libra, yeah, I think it's absolutely a big deal, you know. But we're going to talk about another one here in a second that's an even bigger deal.
Okay.
Um, okay, so after that, Mercury goes retrograde. Mercury will be
Mm.
in Aries. It will go retrograde. So April 1st through April 25th.
Oh,
So yep. Okay, and just a little caveat, just a little note on retrograde. People
yes.
are always scared of retrogrades. You guys don't be scared of retrogrades. Do not be scared of retrogrades. All it is, and all I will say from a science perspective, nothing is actually moving backwards, you guys. It's just the degrees. Like from our perspective here on Earth, it looks like things are moving backwards.
Mm.
And so degree wise, it is. And that is from a scientific perspective. You could ask NASA that same question. They'd say exactly the same thing. Degrees, yes, it is, but not in actuality. So what it means is that we're redoing those degrees. We already did those degrees. Ooh, and now
Oh.
we're going to slow down and now we're going to redo them. So it's giving you another chance to kind of redo some of the things that you've done. So you want to have a lot of reflection during that period. What do you want to redo? You know? And I think the reason why issues sometimes come up is because, well, you know, sometimes issues have to come up in order for us to realize and change our perspective about things. Mercury is all about perspective. So when something happens, pay attention. Pay
Yeah.
attention to it. What this is your chance to redo something. What are you going to redo? And you know, double check your work. Double check everything while Mercury's in retrograde, of course. So yeah. And on that exact same day, we have a last quarter moon in Capricorn. And the quarter moons also can represent times of challenges. So that, you know, April 1st, April Fool's Day, could be a challenging day. We'll see.
Oh.
But nothing crazy. I wouldn't be too concerned. All right. Venus enters Aries on April 4th. That goes through April 29th. Um,
That
and
April 4th is my youngest kiddo's birthday, and April 29th is my birthday.
oh,
We got a
perfect.
Venus Aries transit this year. All right.
There we go. I love it. I love it. Okay, and here's the big money piece this
Okay.
time, guys. We have got a new moon solar eclipse in Aries on April 8th at 11:21 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. Here's the thing, guys. This is a total eclipse. A
Hmm.
total eclipse, okay? So, it it's a big deal. A total eclipse is a big deal no matter what.
I
All
mean, do
right?
they happen every year?
No.
Okay.
No, they don't happen every year. Um, so it's and I think they might happen once with every like nodal season, which is about every 18
Ye-
months, you know.
Okay.
Um, but uh but yeah, they it's a really big deal. And of course, you may or may not be able to see it from where you are. Just Google your location on the path of this and you'll be able to tell what's going on. The thing, though, that's quite striking about this eclipse is that literally at the exact moment of the eclipse, Chiron, which is the asteroid that's the wounded healer, is conjunct the sun and the moon. And when you have anytime you have a new moon, the sun and the moon are conjunct, meaning they're like together. Um, Chiron is right there with them. And you know, you could have a whole lot of theories. Astrologers are not actually, people think astrologers can make like real exact predictions. Astrologers actually cannot. They can only speak to the energy that's there. Who knows how that energy is going to be channeled? So you could come up with all kinds of predictions. you could come up with, oh, this is going to mean major healing for us. Chiron being the wounded healer. New moons are a time for new manifestations and things like that. Okay, so we've got some sort of new healing that's going to be taking place. It's the wounded healer, though. Maybe
Right.
it's our wounding that's going to be highlighted. Like I don't know. It seems pretty major. We may or may not know about exactly what happens at that time. I think sometimes these big events happen and people think, oh, well, nothing actually happened. And then later, 5 years down the line or 50 years down the line or whatever, we realize, oh, actually, something did happen on that day. Just maybe the public didn't know.
Yeah.
So it's not to say
Maybe
that,
a new flame starts and we just don't feel the
yeah,
flame till later.
yeah. So it's a big event though. Yeah. And then the last thing is a first quarter moon in Cancer on April 15th. Yeah.
I love a Cancer moon. We
Yes,
we
it is
need a
lovely.
Cancer moon on tax day. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Suzanne.
Yeah.
I loved having this conversation, and I know that we repeated ourselves a lot, but I think there's a lot of value in that, especially for those of us that struggle with certain signs. It's like we need to hear it, we need to hear it multiple times, we need to kind of hear it different ways. Um, and I just want to like remind everybody out there that even if you don't know anything about your chart, that we all have aspects of these elements within us and places in our lives where this shows up. And so
Yes,
there's
absolutely.
value in understanding the archetype regardless of whether or not you're into astrology.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But if you are into astrology, Suzanne and I are offering a flash sale. So it's today and tomorrow, Saturday, March 23rd, Sunday, March 24th. Um, Flash sale where you can do joint readings with us. So you can do a year ahead reading with us, $222. And so we will look at the transits, like starting with Aries season and moving forward, what's up ahead for you this year. And if you've never had a birth chart reading, then you could buy both. The birth chart plus the year ahead reading is $367. And here's what I want to say about this. We're just doing this because it's fun. Like this is really because it's fun and we like it and we think it will be good for you all. If you were to book us separately for an hour, it would be more expensive than this. So we've priced it to make it available to you, which is why it's only available for 48 hours. Um, so yeah, if you book a reading with us, then Suzanne and I will both be there. We'll have looked at your chart, we'll have looked at your transits, and we will invite your guides and angels to add in whatever they would like to add in and help us to focus the reading, and you'll be able to ask questions and all that good stuff. So if you're interested in that, you can go to amyhageman.love/astroflash, and the link will be in the show notes. And are going to welcome back Suzanne in about a month. We'll be talking about what comes next. I should know that, Taurus.
Yes.
We'll be talking about Taurus season in April. So thank you so much, loves, and I will talk to you next week. Bye.